All right, so that was our request class. Now let's take a look at a couple things we can do with our response class. So let's set up a fresh response. I'm going to uncomment this line out here, and that will replace this response. And let's set the content. We'll just set it to hello again world it is, and then give it a time. And we also want to make sure we're going to output this to the browser. So we'll uncomment out this response send, save it, jump to the browser, and refresh. And you see our output showing here. I'll go back to the editor. So now by default, our response is going to return a 200 code, which means that everything's good to go. You're probably familiar with some of the codes that are out there, like 404, which means that the resource wasn't found, or 500, which means there's been some other server error. So we can easily set the status code with the response object. So I'm going to uncomment this out to set the status code to 404 and save it. I'll go back to the browser and refresh. And now you can't tell that it's a 404 unless we look at the headers. So this is Chrome, and so I'm going to do inspect element to pop open the developer tools. I'm going to go to the network tab and refresh the page again. And this gives us some details about the index.php that we just got. The method that we used was get, we found that out already, and the status is 404. Cool. So just to test this out for sure, I'm going to go back to our editor and I'm going to comment this out again. So we're not setting the status to 404, and I'm going to refresh. And now, when we look at index.php, it's got a status of 200. I'll jump back to the editor. And so another thing that we can set are headers. And this gathers our headers all in one place, so it's easy to override existing headers. If we set a header that already exists, that's stored in the response object, then it won't duplicate it. So we'll keep it clean for us. I'm going to uncomment this line out. I'm going to save, and then let's jump to the browser and refresh. So now this text looks a little odd, and that's because now the type is text plain. We're not rendering the page as HTML anymore. We're rendering it as a text file. And finally, this last example, which is hard to demonstrate, shows how you can set the maximum age for the browser to cache a particular file or resource. This would set it to 10 seconds. But doing this by modifying the headers directly is a big pain. So this method that comes with response is actually really nice. So again, with our object orientation here, because we're wrapping everything in our response object, nothing gets changed globally until we get to the point where we're actually sending the response. So all of our headers, our content, everything is stored inside of the object where it can be modified before it actually gets sent to the client. That's a lot of control, and that control comes in really handy as we start to generalize our code and make it more flexible.